Good afternoon, everybody. Well, we made it to the end of the first week, and it's been a glorious week. It's been a very quick week. It's been a very fun-packed week, and it's been full of wonderful conversations with children and staff about just how lovely it is to be back. The sun's been shining all week. Wind's been a little bit cold, but it's been great to see the children returning and be able to have the odd conversation with parents and see a few smiling faces. So really good to see everyone back in and cracking on with everything. I thought I'd just do a quick catch up on one of the things I mentioned to children in assembly this week. Because I think it's a very important part of the ethos of what we aim to achieve here at Ellen Court, and something that is often overlooked in the general conversation in education around subjects, maths, English, and so on and so forth. Because actually most of what we do obviously is around creating young people who are going to grow up to be 20, 30 somethings who are very capable of holding down complex jobs, making the world a better place, and being very appropriate parents to the next generation. So really important set of skills that need to go up, that are all personality based skills. All the major companies in the world are looking for a set of very easily and clearly defined skills in their young employees that unfortunately aren't as easy to find nowadays as one might expect them to be. And we very much focus on trying to develop those kind of skills. Anyway, so I was in assembly. I found this. I popped up to see my mother long last, and rooting through my father's quite extensive library, I came across this book and remembered that he'd read it to me many times. And it is a favourite. It is, of course, the Winnie the Pooh by A. Milne. And I took the liberty of reading the first story, the first part of the first story to children in years 1, 2 and 3. And I sort of gave a brief description of the story to those in years 4, 5 and 6 and talked a little bit more about what I'm now going to talk about. So the story is the wonderful, very simple story of Winnie the Pooh, a bear as we know of Little Brain, a very clever character that, because actually he quite obviously becomes a bear or capable of very deep thought and significant reflection, skills that are very important to encourage in children. And we see that in our children here when they've made mistakes, when they've made acts of learning, breakthroughs. That reflection is very important, and something that we strive to ensure takes place on a regular basis. So anyway, Winnie the Pooh's walking along, and he suddenly hears buzzing, and being a bear of little brain, he has to think very hard to understand where that buzzing is coming from, what makes it, and he remembers it must be bees, and then he suddenly thinks where there are bees there are honey, and so he ascertains that there is at the top of this very tall pine tree a nest of bees, and there's honey, and obviously honey is a lovely thing, it's very sweet, and bears love it. So he has a goal. He suddenly has something that he really wants to achieve. He wants honey, and honey is a goal worth striving for. So off he climbs, and as he climbs higher and higher. He sings a complaining song. Now, he doesn't describe it as a complaining song in the first part, he just sings the song, but he refers to it as a complaining song. And that's, I think, is really important. When you're striving for a goal, things don't go easily. His complaint is that why on earth would bees build honey at the top of trees? If they were bears, they'd build it at the bottom, and there'd be less need for all the stairs. And he's complaining, and of course it is perfectly okay to complain, but it is also worth remembering that complaining is pretty useless. It doesn't matter whether you're complaining about climbing a tree to get honey, or you are on a deck of a boat things are going wrong, it's dark, and you haven't prepared properly, and you find yourself on the foredeck trying to secure something down that should have been secured beforehand, and you might find yourself screaming into the teeth of a gale completely uselessly. Might warm you up briefly, but you know in the moment it's useless, and it is worth reflecting on that. So turning this bear of little brain turns it into a song, a complaining song. What a brilliant way of doing your complaining. So I'm going to try and do that next time I'm in a certain supermarket and getting stressed. I might hum to myself a little ditty as my complaining song. So anyway, he struggles on, and just as he's about to get to the honey, he stretches a little bit too far, breaks a branch and tumbles down. And in that moment he ends up on his back in a gorse bush with a bottom full of prickles. And as I explain to children, that is to some extent a lot of life in a nutshell. You see something that you want, a goal, you aim for it, and you strive for it, and it hurts. And that's life. It hurts. It doesn't really matter what it is you really want. If it is a goal worth achieving, it's likely to cause you pain and anguish and frustration. If you want to learn to sew, you're going to stick needles in yourself numerous occasions. Anyone who's tried sewing, I regularly end up sewing sailcloth and stuff, and you end up with holes in yourself, and they hurt, but the actual goal and the skill and the satisfaction of creating something and mending it is worth it. And learning that is a vital skill. If you want to become a footballer, you're going to hurt yourself doing it. You're going to be booed at times. You don't want to be. Your teammates aren't going to say the right thing to you at the right time. You might find that they are less than supportive. You are going to find yourself in situations where you're complaining about the weather, or about the fact that your shoelaces aren't tied up and you can't get them up because your fingers are too cold. All sorts of things. If you're a ballet dancer, it's going to take pain. You ask anyone who's a professional dancer, there is an awful lot of pain along the way to achieving any worthwhile goal. And if the pain isn't physical, it's likely to be emotional, or in some way. And that is life. And the reason it's so important, there are many reasons why it's so important that children understand that through small aims at small goals, within up to the age of 10, 11, getting used to some of the frustrations and understand the pain, but also understand the incredible power of satisfaction, the wonderful joy of achievement that has kept human beings pushing forward and developing themselves individually and societies as a whole, is so powerful and so wonderful that the pain and the frustration is worth it. And the reason this is so important is that when we become parents ourselves, some really complicated things have to happen. We have to subvert our own wishes and our own wants on many, many occasions in order to understand and react to the wants, needs and desires of our children. One of the hardest things, I think, to do is to remember that there's a big difference between wanting children to be happy and expecting them to be happy all the time. A child who is happy all the time, literally all the time, up to puberty, is going to have one awful series of shocks and upsets during puberty that they probably are not prepared for in a way that allows them to develop properly and successfully and be the person that they should and could be. And certainly if you arrive at 25 without having understood some of these very, very important, very childlike, described by A. Milne through the eyes of a bear, but very important human attributes, if you don't gain them in bucketfuls at primary school, you're going to find it extremely difficult to be able to react appropriately when, as a young adult, you're faced with the sudden, dramatic expectations of becoming a parent or taking on a new job or whatever it is. So these are, anyway, so that was my assembly this week. And actually several children have come up to me during the course of the week and said, that it did make them think, which is, I'd like to say that that's very normal, but actually it's not. So I was quite pleased to have done that. Do remember that wherever you see any children's fiction, really the messages, across all good children's fiction and are around learning lessons in life, and how to become a successful adult, because childhood is preparation for adulthood, and if you don't get the childhood right, and it is not right for it to be filled with ceaseless laughter, it is right for it to be a happy childhood, and a happy childhood will involve, as my mother used to say, blood and tears before bedtime, but that still doesn't mean that it's not a happy childhood. Happy childhood is a successful childhood, a childhood that prepares you appropriately for your a solid teenage period and a thriving young adult life. And we're very much about developing that at Allen Court here. So anyway, thanks very much indeed. It's been an amazing week and great to see everybody back in a school again. There are children running around outside in the sunshine, and they're just loving being back together. Thanks very much indeed. Have a lovely weekend, and hope to catch up with more of you over the course of the coming term. Bye bye.